All right, so we're here for another episode of The Throw Show. And we're here with Rachel Fatherly and Trevor Stutzman. Rachel, thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
So this is the first podcast I've done, or first anything I've done since I had my twins. So
I was going to mention that.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
What are their names?
Keenan and George. So Rachel guessed Keenan's name, but she didn't know it. So Keenan's middle name is George, which is he's named that's after my grandfather, and then Seneca Bree, and Bree is Caitlin's middle name.
Oh.
It's like her great grandmother's maiden name, and everybody in her side of the family has Bree as their middle name.
What was the inspiration for the first names?
Seneca. So Seneca is a name that I just have liked since I was like 20, which is weird. But it was a Native American tribe in New York, and I remember reading about them. And then in religious studies, we studied Seneca, who was a Roman philosopher. Mm-hmm. So even though it's a male's name, I always thought it would be a good girl's name.
Yeah.
And then Keenan is I'll say it's an Irish name with African American influence.
Nicely said.
But it's an Irish name, and Caitlin's whole family's really Irish. So I mean, they're all. That's why I have a Claudia. So it was sort of like she wanted to have an Irish name because the other two, she didn't let me pick. I wanted to name him Gable or Burroughs, but she didn't want anything to do with that. So we settled with Keenan. But yeah, so they're doing well.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Okay, so Rachel, I think you're starting to be. Dude, me missing these teeth. It's so hard for me to speak right now.
Dave, how do you lose those teeth?
I got kicked in the face, and then I broke my bridge when I was deadlifting. 550 for 10. 550 for 10. But Rachel, I think, is like the thrower who's on the come up right now. She's like the dark horse that everybody sees in the shadows coming, and everybody knows she's coming, and no one knows really what to do. And I think that's what's so exciting for me is that she has come from, you threw 47 in high school. Mm-hmm. You went to Penn State, broke the Penn State shot put record. You were an All-American. What did you throw, 17.22?
Yeah, and then, it was like 56 for indoor and out.
And she was a 21-meter weight thrower. But so she had a good collegiate career. She went to the Olympic trials, and the Olympic trials in 2016 was the first meet that I was fortunate enough to coach her, and she threw like 15.23, I think, or 27, something like that. And after that, she ended up moving to Reading, and she was the first post-collegiate thrower, basically, like first true on-site post-collegiate thrower that I got to work with. So this is our third year now working together. And I think that everybody has sort of seen her rising up. And I've been telling you, like, we should start pushing her more on Throws University because people see what's going on. They see her technique. They see her moving well. And so I'm excited about what's going on. But so what I wanted to do was sort of go into your background, which we just did, talk about why you wanted to move here, and then we can just start discussing training and everything like that. And that's what I really wanted to touch on first was why did you want to keep training? What was it like? What did you think? Was it deep down inside you knew you had more in you, and you had more to prove, and you had more to accomplish, or what? What was it?
Yeah, I felt like there was a ton of unfinished business, and I knew that I was capable of throwing a lot farther than I did, and I just didn't want to go into a career and just have that feeling like I could have done more. I could have done more. Right. And I just felt like this is a dream that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah. No, I think, and I think that. So her answer to me, I mean, I sort of knew the answer already, which is why I set her up that way. But for me, seeing Rachel, coming out of college and seeing how stiff she was and her mobility problems and all that stuff, it was like, and then seeing the fact that she had thrown 17 meters, for me, it was like, okay, this might be a project, might be 2 years, and she's capable of throwing really far. She's a 21-meter weight thrower. She's thrown 17 meters already. We clean up some of her technique. We clean up her mobility problems, and I think she's a 19-plus shot putter, and I think that's starting to really come to fruition now. So I don't know, I think that's something that I'm very excited about, and I like what I see, and I like the fact that we're still making progress from 2 years ago, and even today in training today. It's like there's still not serious glaring issues, but there's still issues that we can deal with, and you're still getting better, and you're getting better at handling those issues compared to where you were 2 years ago. So before Trevor, I think you could ask some questions, but from my perspective as her coach, it's like she is probably one of the most enjoyable people to coach, because it's always a challenge, as far as like in the beginning it was always a challenge where she was at with technique. But the way she's taken to the coaching, and the way she's responded, and the way her technique has progressed, I sit there and I'm like, dude, if you go back and look at her technique 2 years ago, it's like, holy crap. And then I sit there now and I'm like, okay, we got 2019, and then we're going to have all of 2020 to prepare. And I'm like, if we did this in 2 years without a base, now we have that base. Now where are we going to be at in 2 years? And I think that's where I'm so excited. And I think people are starting to see it. And I think even training with Mo helps a lot, where it's like, Monique Riddick, who's thrown 1889, she sees it, and she'll sit there. Even the last session, you had a couple that you smashed, and she was like, oh, okay, Rachel, I see you. And I think that's the thing, is that like she was that dark horse, and she still sort of is at the top 4 or 5, and you're just right below her right now. And I think you two are clawing at everybody who's up top, and they all feel that pressure coming, and they all are going to expect big things. At least that's my take on it. And they might say otherwise, but I think that I think they're wrong. I think they're lying to themselves. So maybe I'm talking a little too much trash right now. So
I was going to say, though, also with like, how your technique has been like progressing so much over the last 2 years, just kind of looking at everything kind of from a step back, I guess. Like I've also seen just how you like approach your technique too, and like the mental side, and like how and just like in a day-to-day practice, like how you respond to cues and how you alter things. Like I've seen a big change and a big improvement with that too, and I think that's where it's all going to start coming together, and it is coming together. That's going to make big things as well.
So I think that leads into some good questions. Is that from me, what do you think you do differently as far as considering? I remember in the beginning sending you videos of Justin Rhodey or even Krauser or Kovacs or Hoffa, and saying this is where I want you to be, and knowing at the time, it's almost like I feel like you're so much more advanced as far as your comprehension of technique, that was like that first 6 months was just us going basics, just teaching you basics. And now it's like I can give you one little cue, one little thing, and you're like, oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. And it's like, and you can work on it, and we can go 3 months now working the exact same movement, and you're fine with it. And because you see where it's at, you see where it's going to be. So for me, what do you like? How did you do that? How did you do that without? Because we're talking before the podcast even started about frustration, and you do get frustrated, but you handle it pretty well. Whereas myself, because I was so immature, I would flip tables and scream and punch Kuhn in the face. I never actually punched him in the face, but
in the face.
But I would handle it so poorly, and I think that's something that the throwers that are just sub elite, that they lack so much, is that they don't know what you have. They don't know that. They don't know how to get from where I was as a thrower to get to where, that 21-meter guy or the 2050 guy, or in your case, 18 to 19. What are you doing mentally? I guess the big question would be, in the beginning, what was it like? Was it overwhelming? What was that like? And then walk us through now what it's like going to practice, or did you just always have that same approach?
I feel like now I focus a lot more on technique, because when I first started, like, I was so used to jumping that I thought that was a norm. And, like, you would show me videos, I had no idea what you were talking about. And so I'd just be like, okay, but I think that, like, you being patient and then me, like, being willing to, like, open up and, like, tell you, be like, look, I am a meathead. I like to see stuff go far. Like, that helped a lot. And I think that now, like, every program, when we sit down and talk about, like, the goals that we want to accomplish and, like, or taking easy throws so that I can feel positions, it's helped me tremendously.
So you think even on, like, a day-to-day basis today, like, you know, even with, like, the 3K today, you know, those nons, nice and easy, slow throws, you understand, like, okay, these don't have to go far. They just have to feel solid. If I can get these to feel good, then the 4K is going to go well. As far as today's program, right? And I think that's a huge step. And that's what's funny is that Legend texts me today, and he goes, go. And as soon as he texts me, he goes, go look at my throws. And his left foot was low. And I was like, yeah, what'd you think about it? He's like, well, I did those slow throws that you told me to do like 3 months ago, but I would never do them. And it's like, why did you take 3 months to do them? But it's the same thing. It's like, okay, I don't need these to go far. I just need to feel it. And I think that was even the thing in the beginning. Looking back at those old videos, is what it was in the beginning for you, at least as the coach. It was like, I wasn't even trying to get you to feel what I want you to feel today. I was trying to get you to unfeel that old technique. So that we would almost get, it was like, here's the old technique, here's where I want you to be. You know, and I tell Rachel this all the time, that I believe she's going to be the technical model. I think she has that capability that she can be in 2 years, she can be the technical model. She can be the girl like Anita Martin or Danielle or Maggie, where I can sit there and be like, yo, check out, this is what I want you to do. And if we sat here and said, this is her old technique, and this is Danielle on her finish, or somebody like that, or Krauser, it was like getting her back so that she had a blank slate. Yeah. And then now we're like, you know, we were here in middle, like towards the end of 2016, early 2017, and now we're sort of getting back, or now we're building. And if this is 2020, where I think you're going to be in 2 years, you know, we're like here. And I think that's the exciting part. Yeah. So I don't know. I think that's what's cool, is it's like, and you've been patient with me, and I do think it is a lot of us communicating together, and we've like yelled at each other a couple times. Yeah. But not any like knock them down fights. No.
I think that's another piece that, I don't know, Rachel, you could pitch in with this, but like how, like I feel like just, and as like, you know, you and me as well, being like getting better as coaches too, just improving that communication part. Yeah. And I think that kind of lended itself to the whole process, like over the last 2 years, just to improve like understanding like technique better, and just kind of having like a goal in mind each session. That's what I always thought of, like how like now that you're going into each session with like a goal. We
know what we're gonna do.
And each program the goal, each week the goal, each session the goal.
And I'll put a lot of that on her too. Is that I'll write programs, and let's say you know, actually Sam does ask me a decent amount of questions, but let's say it's another meathead. I guess you guys are all meatheads. But I'll write a program, and some people just get the program and they just go, which is fine too. That's okay if that works. But I think that there's a lot of athletes that fall through the cracks in the NCAA, and I think Rachel's one of them, because if you had Rachel when she's 17, 18 years old, dude, she would have graduated throwing 19 meters. There's no reason she shouldn't have thrown that far, at least mid-18s. Like, she is wired. She has what it takes. She obviously has that mental capacity, and I think the problem is that a lot of coaches, I don't know if they have like the one size fits all, but they also don't communicate with people differently. So someone like Sam, I can communicate with him one way, with Rachel, I can communicate with her another way, and we're gonna do things much more regimented. Like Rachel will tell me when I have to leave to go home from work, like, or she'll tell me like, did you pack your lunch today? Like little stuff like that or whatever, where she's clearly regimented and I'm not. But if I was a typical NCAA coach, I wouldn't foster her being regimented, and I think that's where a lot of people fail. Throwers like her is that I think that's probably what happened even in college, is that she was not, that part of her was not brought out. And that's where us meeting at the beginning of every program and meeting at the end of every program, and then even when we're training in a program in a day-to-day basis, hey, what weights do you want me to hit? What are the goals for the session today? What weights do you want me to do here? And then I do think we could even do a little bit better, more in the circle, where it's like, all right, what do you want exactly today? I think we always know what we're working on, but we could be almost a little bit more clear. And that's on me, because I know that she's regimented and she feeds off of that. And me being all over the place, sometimes I'll just go to practice and I'll be like, all right, let's fucking throw.
Yeah.
Sorry, Trevor. I swore on our podcast.
Yeah. So why don't we go back to so we were talking about like, having like a little bit of frustration.
Yeah.
And before we started, you kind of led into a little bit that today was a bit of a frustrating session.
Yeah.
But I didn't see what it was.
Rachel, you walk us through today.
I didn't hear, so why don't you walk
I want to hear her side, and then I'll give you my side.
Right.
So my thought process was like, this is my distance day. Like in my brain, I thought like, it's cold out, but I still should be able to throw far. So like my 3Ks felt solid, and I was just taking them easy. So,
they were coming off her hand pretty well.
Okay.
And then like I started to get a little more cold, but then I'm like, it's okay. If I focus on like my left arm, I should still be fine. Then I switched weights, and like the first couple didn't feel right, and I think I was too long into the middle. So then I slowly started to get frustrated. Then there would be one. And then like I just got more and more frustrated, even though he kept saying like they look fine and like my footwork was good. It was like either my left arm was late or like it wasn't coming off my hand. And he keeps telling me like, it's cold out, like your hand, it's cold. So then I get mad. I take the glove off and I'm like, I'm just going to like go through it. One goes, and it was just like hit or miss. And I just felt like frustrated because when we were inside, like I felt like my right was getting into the middle like a lot more than it was. And it just felt a little off. So then I just was getting really upset. And then he like measured and it was perfectly fine. But I
so
was
the distance was there. It's just that
it was fine. I
it
just
was
like
the feeling was off.
Yeah, the feeling was off, and then it just like I think I was also cold, and it just made me upset.
Yeah.
And he was trying to like tell me that it was fine, but once I'm like mad, it's like
Well,
not.
she and Lucas were both like, Lucas was all pouty saying he was throwing 45 feet with a 10K.
And then that's like, I'm like, if he's throwing 45, my cone's barely like past him. And I'm like, oh my God.
And then I measured both of them like, you guys are both stupid.
Well, so what was your take?
Okay, so my take is this. I have a big take on this. And before I start, I'll acknowledge that if it was me, I would have been way worse than Rachel. I would have broken the tape measure. But my take was she was warming up well with the 3K. She was keeping her right down longer on the finish. Her left was pretty good opening up, and the shot wasn't like perfect off her hand, but she had a glove on. So I thought the way it looked to me, it looked pretty good off the hand, especially for her, because that's one thing that I want to focus on a lot with her is I think she could add 50 centimeters to her throw just by getting a hit on the shot. Yeah. So I thought with the 3K it looked decent. Then with the 4K, she was a little long with the right, depth wise. Okay. And then the left arm, she was wrapping it well, but then she was a little bit late opening it up. and the way I think about it now, and I think having you around has helped me process these things a lot because I can shoot ideas off of you, but also just from doing so many technical analysis and seeing them, almost 12 sessions a week, 11 or 10 or 11 sessions a week, and seeing so many throws and getting good feedback, I can sort of piece things together. And I think what ends up happening is that during the session, I think, okay, one negative part about us throwing inside where in our circle is that it doesn't affect Sam because he has a bigger circle. But in the shot, because we don't have a cutout circle, I think sometimes she gets a little bit long and I don't notice it because there's no distinct circle there. And it's not a lot, but it's just a little bit.
We could fix that.
I know we could fix it well. and I think that and I also think that sometimes too, and Sam brought this up to me about last week at the end or before Caitlin had the twins, it was probably like Tuesday. He had felt like his slow throws were almost too slow. And I think that that's also goes back to throwing into the net. Sometimes I let him go too slow. I think it's okay to have 4 or 5 throws that are really slow. Mm-hmm. But I think sometimes with Rachel, she goes too slow and she's too late off the left, but she's hitting decent positions. So I don't think like pick it up a little bit and hit the same positions. So when I was out there watching her, I was like, well, this is probably a result of the last 2 days we've thrown inside. So she's going to be a little bit long. She was a little bit late off the left, out of the back. Okay, so that's like, I know what that's stemming from. It's not a big problem. I think we can fix that easily when we throw inside. Because she did look really good the past couple of days when we were throwing inside. So then that's the next step. Okay, well, when we were indoors, it might not even be that because she was inside and she looked really, really good the past 2 days. Well, we're throwing inside and it's 55, 60. We're throwing outside and it's 30 degrees with a wind chill of 20. Yeah. Okay? I wrote all this stuff down. Then on top of that, she front squatted 130 kilos for a double yesterday morning. And then last night, what did she do? She did 5 sets of 5 bench press over 235. Then she did a time set at 205. And when I use the time sets, that gives me a feedback of where her body is. And it was balls slow, just horribly slow. And so then I start thinking, okay, she did that big front squat. She did the benches yesterday, and then she got killed at the end of her workout with triceps. So, okay, that's maybe the hit will be off just a little bit. And then I sit there and I'm like, dude, for all these things and for how cold, and it was like 20-mile-an-hour winds, I didn't care. I was like, dude, she's fine. She's perfectly fine. She's holding the left in the middle, and she's still opening up better. Yesterday, she was opening up a little bit like this. Now she's opening up longer with the left arm, and she's turning well. All that it is she was a little off with the right to the middle. She was a little late off the left leg, and she's slightly fatigued. That's not in my mind. In my mind, if we're in April, those throws are a meter further, I think, because it's going to be warmer. And she won't be nearly as fatigued. So the fatigue now, what I always like to think about when I'm writing the program too, is that her fatigue levels now, I want to be here. Then the fatigue levels of like fatigue in April will be here. But then the fatigue levels, when we're peaking are going to be here, right? So it's like right now, she's just torched and she's still looking good with her technique. And she's still hitting pretty good positions. And all these things, I think that we can fix immediately. I think, within like 3 throws of me hounding her with her last like 3 or 4 throws, her right leg was down right away. And then she's in the back and she she's more stubborn than me. She's like blowing on her hands, trying to warm them up. And I'm like, I can't tell her anything at this point because she's so mad about the whole situation. And I'm going, her hands are frozen. She can't even feel the shot. Kuhn couldn't even video during the session because of this. My phone was turning off. That's why I told you when you came out. Your phone's going to shut off. So then I was like, Rachel, you just got to calm down. And then we measured it. You actually
were right about that.
Then when we measured it, I was like, oh, well, this is even better. Because I think, what I think happens is if you, and if you think about this, go back 2 years ago, let's say that our sinus meet where Sanderson pissed all over the track.
Oh,
yeah. Before that meet, let's say you were throwing 16 meters in training and you threw like 1570 or something at that meet. So I believe right now where you're at technique wise and your feeling for the throw, you're a completely different thrower. You go inside into a meet setting and it's not even it's 50 to 100 centimeters further, a meter further. When you go into an indoor meet now, because you know how it feels, you know what technique feels like. Going back to 2 years ago, I was trying to get you to unfeel your technique. So you had no idea. It was like you were just picking up the shot for the first time and you were throwing 15 meters. So that's the way that's the whole thing. That's how I think about this whole process with Rachel, is that's where it's going to be. Like, that's where it is. And I see where the path is for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is that, like, people on the outside might not see all this. They can't see this stuff going on. Like, they have no concept because they can't even sit back and get off their phones or stop watching Fox News. But I just think that the entire process revolving around her is so it's so educational, and there's so many different facets going into play. That it's so enjoyable for me as a coach to be part of it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's fun.
Yeah. Are there any questions on Instagram or YouTube? Not YouTube.
Is there any Instagram followers on there?
I mean, we've had quite a few people coming in and out, just no questions.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's because I'm talking too much. I think that when I think about the whole process behind everything, and it's so interesting to me, because if you think about Peyton versus Rachel versus Mo versus Alex versus Sam, and you've got 6 characters that are like completely different. Every single one of them is high maintenance in their own regard, in their own unique quality, and you've got to, as a coach, embrace all of them.
Yeah.
Like,
do you agree, Rachel?
I do.
Like, and my whole thing is, like, I look at myself, no one ever embraced, like, I'm high maintenance. But nobody ever sat there as a coach and was like, Dane needs X, Y, and Z. He needs to be controlled this way. And that's the thing you got to think about, is like, everybody's got to be controlled in a specific way, but they have to be controlled positively. And that's what it comes back to, is it's like, to foster Rachel, you need to be more regimented, because she'll sit there and be like, remember when I wanted to start putting all the graphs up on the board, she was calling me out. She's like, if they're not up by Sunday, I'm going to be pissed. So I made sure I came in on Saturday. Caitlin's like, why are you going over there on Saturday? I was like, if I don't have these up, Rachel's going to kill me. And then it happened again. The twins were born, and I was like, yo, I got to get this program done, because she was hounding me for a week. You better get my next program done.
I was planning ahead.
Yeah.
I was like, the babies are coming. So, like, I told him, like, Monday. And every day, he's like, I'm going to do it tonight. I'm going to do it tonight. And then I was like, oh, my gosh. And then he texted me, like, they're born. I'm like, he didn't send it. It's not going to be done. And then when I woke up and it wasn't done, I was like, oh, man.
But I sat there.
But then he did it.
So the twins were born Saturday. I think I sent it Sunday morning, early.
Because when I first woke up at, like, 6, I was like, he didn't do it.
But here's where the best part is that I told Rachel I found these DVDs from a while ago that I bought like 5 years ago, and they're good. So I was like, I gotta rewatch these. It's all like training stuff, and I was watching them, and I saw like 4 exercises in it that we haven't used or really never used. So I was like, I'm going to test these out on Rachel and see what happens. So now they're in her program, because I watched it on Sunday morning at like 5 a.m. And then I wrote her program like right after.
Yeah, I saw that one. I like the one.
The snatch one?
The snatch.
Yeah, there's a couple other ones like that. But even that goes back to with her, is that, you know, if you look at somebody like Sam, he is as mobile as you can get in most positions. He's very, very mobile. You know, and he's super hypertrophic, but he's also very flexible, and he can hold positions. He's stable in most positions that he's in. So he needs mobility more for recovery. Rachel needs mobility so she can hit those positions and hold them. And that's where this is part of the process too, is it's like, if I can explain that to her, then she knows, like, okay, these weird like the curtsy step ups or the curtsy one-leggeds, that's going to help open up her hips so she can hold a little bit more tension and in certain specific positions. But we have to address it. It can't be like, oh, well, you can't do it, we're done. You know, like the close grip snatches, I didn't think you would pick those up that fast.
Yeah,
those are pretty good.
Surprised.
Yeah. But that just shows where you're at. Dude, that 2 years ago, you would have fallen over on your head.
Oh, yeah. I mean, even with the single leg 2 years ago, I could only do it with the bar.
Yeah, now you're doing almost 300 pounds. So I think it's exciting. And I think that's I think between Mo and between Rachel, those two, especially Mo right now, because she's feeding off of what Rachel and I do. I think she sees it, and now she's bought into it even more. And I think those two they have potential to be like that female technical model that we have. I think Maggie is there, but there's not many chicks that are at that level. And I think that's what's exciting is that long drawn out process will pay off, and it will, and the development of strength. She's doing 5 sets of 6 or 5 at over 225, and her arms are like blown up yesterday, but you still did them all. So I think that's the cool part, is that it's fun for me to take a step back and be like, all these people, we talked about this with Sam's podcast, is that the athletes that train here, they're not like, Sam was that top notch guy, but he was still an outsider. He was still sort of like shunned. People were saying his marks were fake. Nobody really liked him, all this stuff. And that's how Rachel was. She was just like, nah, she's not going to be good. So nobody wanted to invest in her. The OTC didn't give a shit about you. They still don't care about you. No. And you're going to whoop all their asses again this year, just like you did last year. So that's what's going to be even funnier. Is it's like, that's the type of athlete that I want, is the ones that are just, that are committed to their goals and to their dreams, but aren't coddled like the top-notch ones. Because the top-notch ones are easy to get better. I mean, I would want them too. But only if they have the edge that Rachel has. That's the thing, that Rachel, Sam, Mo, Alex, like, they all have the edge. They have that claw, scratch, fight to the top, because they haven't been there. They haven't been given everything their whole life.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that's especially where I don't think people like Rachel don't get enough credit with, like, taking the whole, like, where you are in your life right now too. Like, that you're what,
24,
an hour or 2 hours away from where your parents are living, about maybe. And like, I mean, you're in Leesport, which like isn't the most romantic place in the world, but like, you're here to train, you're here to work hard, and that's what you're doing. And like,
and she does it twice a day.
Yeah, exactly. And not having all of the little coddling things, like you're saying, that some people are can have, but still wanting to train as hard as you can to be the best that you can be. Like, I think there aren't many people who can, who have that determination, to make it happen.
Right. Are there any questions, Jason?
Yeah, we actually have one from Ryan Hirschberger.
Oh, Hirschberger.
Yeah. So he was talking about, you were talking about how Rachel would have issues sometimes being long without a toe board. His question was kind of related to, if you have a discus thrower who like crowds the front, have you ever tried like having them throw out like the size of a shot circle in order to like kind of shorten them up like on their entry?
I think if there's a discus thrower, it's different though. I think a discus thrower is going to be longer because they're extending their left knee too much out of the back, and they're sweeping up with their right. Their high point with their right foot, when their right foot's at 90 or 180 in the back, that's their low point, and then they sweep up instead of having that be their high point and sweep down. So I would say, for a discus thrower that's too long to the front, I would just say they're extending too much off the left, and their sweep leg, they need to sweep down with a higher point. If they're facing the back, I don't know if I'm making this clear.
Makes sense to me.
Okay. When they get to 180 with that right leg around the left, they should be sweeping down. That's where the highest point of their right leg should be. So I think in the discus it's a little more technical, whereas I think with Rachel it was just spatial. I don't think it's it is a technique thing, right? But it's more spatial awareness than anything else. And I think that's something I learned from Dr. B. I can't. I mean, maybe I'll take credit for it, right? But I'll say, like, Dr. B wouldn't like us throwing down in the throwing room, because we would have different spatial awareness. So for if we were always down in the room, it would feel like we were throwing 21. I was throwing 21 meters. I would just smash these throws. but then we would go throw up in the main area, and your spatial, like, because in the room everything's like right here, and then you get up top and everything your peripheral was all out of whack. And I think that's similar. I think the mechanism is similar in the indoor area here because we don't have the full blown circle.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. That's a really long winded answer, but I think for the discus thrower it's more technique. And I don't know if Hirschberger's asking this because Alex was just thrown out of a shot circle, and that has nothing to do with it. That's only because Alex was too lazy to move the freaking discus ring to where he was throwing discus in Grand Valley, so he threw out of the shot circle.
Ryan says that makes sense.
Yeah, so I think with regarding Rachel, I just think it's when she's taking her slow throws, I think she's good. I just think we got to be that transition from the slow to the normal throws. It's got to be off the left a little quicker, and I just got to be a little more aware. It's not on her; it's on me being aware where she is. And I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's just cueing her up and be like, "Hey, you're a little long now." So, any other questions or no? Okay.
Should we go into the speed round?
Yeah, so we were calling it speed round, but then I saw Jason posted on Instagram. He called it the Red Hot Minute.
I mean, the Red Hot Minute sounds a lot cooler than the speed round.
You guys on fire.
he lit us on fire.
I don't know if you actually watched this.
I did. I liked it. Yeah. Yeah, Kuhn's videos are awesome.
Great job, Jason. You don't get enough credit.
No. Here's the problem with Jason is that he half the time he'll just be like, "I know those videos are good." All right, so I have a couple. I have 3. I don't know how many Trevor has.
I have 4.
Okay, good. Mine are one's sort of funny. It's more like an inside joke with Rachel and I. And then the other 2 are a little more applied because I know she has like a love-hate with the one. Okay, so I want to do the funny one first. Butterfinger or Reese's Pieces?
Butterfinger.
Oh, okay. Snatch or clean? And I wanted to ask this only because she doesn't like either one. So I want to know which one she going to pick.
Snatch.
Okay. Cold and 25 degrees, so basically like today. Or 40 degrees and rainy?
40 and rainy.
Oh, okay. This is something too I want to point out with Rachel is that she's always game to go out, and even when I'm not throwing, I'm not doing anything. I'll just be like, all right, we'll just go out, but I don't want to go out. Deep down inside, I'm like, nah, I'd rather stay inside and go on the air bike while they're throwing. But she will always go out, and when we were at USA's. Everybody was worried that it was going to rain. Oh, my gosh, it might rain. And she's like, I don't care if it rains. I throw in the rain all the time.
Yeah, right.
I throw in the snow. I don't care. Yeah. Whatever happens, it's a shot circle. And I know I've dealt – and that's one thing, too, is that, Taman had asked about what is it like when you feel like crap and you're getting into a training session and how you handle that mentally. And it's one of those things where it's like with us – we just deal with it. You got to deal with it, and you know like, okay, it's cold, it's snowing. I got to get my throws in. I got to focus on technique, and that's it. That's what I'm going to work on. And to answer Taman's question, I thought it was interesting because I was thinking when you are beat up or sore or whatever, we know like you might not smash it today. We just need to work on technique and having that different aspect, even though you feel like crap and you are worn down. I think that's important to have that perspective. I don't want to ruin the Red Hot Minute. So now it's like Red Hot 5 minutes.
All right, well, I'll pick it up. Chipotle or Panera?
Chipotle.
Oh yeah, Chipotle all day.
This is close to Dane's question, but one-legged squats or pipe walks?
Pipe walks.
Oh, wow. Wow, I did not see that coming.
All right, so this is EFM protein, banana or strawberry?
Banana.
And last one, if you're going to think like which shot to enjoy throwing more, the 6K or the 6-pounder?
6K.
Yeah.
6K.
I was thinking that. I was gonna ask that question.
Right.
Like, you're stuck on an island. You get to pick one shot. What is it?
Because you're still throwing shot when you're stuck on it. Yeah, of course. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. Answer that one, Rachel.
Is it other than the Forca?
Yeah.
10.
10. Okay. All right, Rachel. Thanks for being on. I
thanks.
think we'll have her on again soon because maybe at the end of indoors I can talk some more trash. No, thanks for being on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Peace.